Good evening and welcome to tonight's webinar, 7 Reasons Why Multifamily Investing is Better than Single Family Investing. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I appreciate you being here a tad bit early. I wanted to allow some of the others that are starting to join to give them a chance to be here. And we're going to start promptly at 6:30. I don't want to penalize you for being on time, and I certainly want to be respectful of your time this evening. And when I'm going to advance you to just some friendly reminders for tonight as we'll wait for some of our fellow participants to join us. The first is this will be an ongoing monthly discussion. You can expect to hear multiple multifamily topics related to not only apartments, but senior living, assisted living facilities, but largely apartment investing. We're going to spend a lot of time there, but we will have a series of conversations that push off this foundational or inaugural conversation. And secondly, I ask that you just keep an open mind throughout the entirety of the presentation tonight, because I think there's going to be a lot of good information that you can take away. Some that's going to be actionable, some's going to just make you contemplate single family investing, or if nothing else, supplement multifamily investing with your single family investing. And there's a lot of great reasons. I'm going to give you 7 tonight and encourage you to stay until the end. I know that often you can hear a couple things you may not like, but give this presentation a chance and give me an opportunity to lay out the 7 reasons why. I'll be very respectful of your time as I see the balance of our participants are starting to join. So just give them just about 30 seconds or so, and we will get going with tonight's presentation. 7 reasons why multifamily investing is better than single family investing. All right, so we are ready to resume. We are ready to move forward and get you this information as quickly as I can and make sure that I give justice to every one of the reasons that's going to be listed here. Again, 7 reasons why multifamily investing is better than single family investing. Tonight's webinar is for those looking to begin or grow a multifamily portfolio. And as I said to those who joined us a tad bit early, you don't have to completely abandon your single family real estate investing, but you can supplement it. But here's 7 great reasons why you may want to just consider moving to multifamily investing from the beginning. Tonight, my name is Mario Joyner. I'm your host. I'm also the organizer of this meetup group, and I thank you for attending. I am currently a realtor, investor, and consultant on these matters. So tonight's agenda, here's what we'll discuss this evening. I will thank you for attending formally. I will let you know what to expect from this particular meetup group. It may be similar to some of the topics you may have heard in other groups, but I feel like there's going to be some uniqueness to this particular group as we build a community of like-minded individuals looking to either invest in multifamily real estate or grow their existing portfolio. I'll give you a very brief introduction on myself and share my background. I certainly live by the motto of look through the windshield and not the rearview mirror. So I won't spend a lot of time on who I am and what I'm about, just enough to justify, hopefully, or from your perspective, this hour of time that you've invested with me tonight. I will, again, heart of the conversation, 7 reasons why multifamily investing is better than single family investing. There will be a summary and wrap-up session portion of this discussion, and I will encourage you to join me next month. So here's what you can expect from this particular group. So we will meet every month, at least that's the frequency currently, and discuss many topics related to multifamily investing. Again, this will not only just include apartments, but there's senior living, assisted living facilities, that are a part of multifamily. We'll have some discussion, but primarily our conversation for today and ongoing months will be about apartment financing or apartment investing. You will walk away with actionable content after each and every one of these meetings. I feel as though the information that I will provide tonight is certainly a great start towards that bullet point there. And lastly, I will be available between meetings to answer questions and or offer resources related to this particular topic tonight or other topics that relate to multifamily. Here we go. Here's a little bit about me. So I'm Mario Joyner. I currently reside in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I've been assisting families and clients with growing wealth since 1995. I've done so in multiple asset classes, and I'm super excited right now to begin my new journey in multifamily real estate. I look forward to sharing my personal and professional experiences with this group and assisting you with growing your personal wealth while we acquire our first or next multifamily community. I currently operate as a licensed realtor here in Las Vegas while looking for principal ownership opportunities in multifamily, both locally and nationally. Here are the 7 reasons why multifamily investing is better than single family investing. Thank you so much for investing this time tonight again. It will be just under an hour of conversation from this point on. And here's the first reason why multifamily investing is better than single family investing. Forced appreciation is reason number 1. It is one of the biggest differences between multifamily and single family real estate is how property values are determined. Now you will know, or if you don't, I will share, typically single family properties are valued based upon comparable properties. Now you'll see there's a star here because I denote single family as 1 to 4 units. I mention 1 to 4 because from a lending perspective, that's how it is determined up to 4 units. It's valued pretty much the same, whether it's 1 unit or up to 4, it's based upon comparable properties. Versus multifamily investing is based upon net operating income, or NOI as it may be referred to. And there will be some discussion regarding, and the definition of this will be provided to you going forward. And there's also a great example. There's also 7 ways to increase the value of your property using forced appreciation. And here are the 7 ways to force property appreciation on a multifamily property. The first and most common that you'll hear is just increase the rent. The owner maybe kept the rents at a certain rate because they didn't want to lose tenants, maybe had a long-term relationship or personal relationship with the tenants, and decided, I want to keep my property full and keep my occupancy high, and I don't want to risk turnover. And so therefore, they may not have kept pace with current market rents. So that may be the most obvious, and often is the most obvious way to force appreciation in a multifamily community. Second is you can add facilities. Now, my definition of adding facilities could be things like a swimming pool, a playground for kids, or even a dog park. Those are very popular right now. And by adding those facilities could also increase the value of your property. Third is adding services. Now, when I say services, I mention examples like a laundry facility or laundry room or vending machines. Those are 2 classic examples of adding services to the community and to the property that may or potentially will increase the value of the property just because it adds more revenue or total income to the property itself. The fourth way to force appreciation is to rent extra space. Now, when I define extra space, it can be used for storage. As we know, most single-family homeowners, apartment dwellers, have a separate storage unit off-site. If there is space in your apartment community, you may be able to add storage facilities right on property and therefore utilize that storage space and offer it to your tenants based upon the capacity of the storage units you're able to provide on property. And you can also increase your income, therefore forcing appreciation to the property. Now, you could also, and most traditionally, look at reducing expenses. So number 1, increasing the rents, and number 5, reducing property expenses are typically the first place that investors look to provide value or force appreciation. Now, reducing property expenses, typically you want to look for property expenses for multifamily, and I'm speaking of, say, 10 or more units, or 20 or more units, maybe a better example, somewhere between 45% and 55% of the total income. That's a pretty decent expense ratio. If you see a property or community that you are analyzing and it exceeds that percentage, there may be and potentially are opportunities for you to reduce the property expenses, therefore increasing the value of the property via forced appreciation. Or it may be totally in line, but given the way you would manage it, or you see the expenses that may be a little bit exorbitant, you may be able to take the existing expense items that you see listed, but just may be able to manage the expenses a bit better, again, forcing appreciation to the property. Now, there's extra fees that you can look at, and some of the most common extra fees could be pet fees if they want to bring pets on property. It could be late fees. Of course, you don't want an abundance of those. You want great tenants who pay on time, but they potentially and typically are a percentage of tenants who are habitually late. And so by charging them late fees versus not, one, you will hopefully encourage a much better behavior and consistency with their payments on time. But if they do not comply, there's a way for you to generate some extra income as a result of the late fees that you charge. And for those prospective tenants or residents, you can look at application fees if they're not already charged for those who are looking to apply for residency or tenancy at your particular multifamily community. And then lastly, just improvements to the property. Some of the common property improvements could be, and I gave the example of storage would be a great one, again, which could be used as, when I say rent extra space, that could be an ideal. You could build or have detached garages. There are a number of facilities and communities here locally in Las Vegas that have detached garages, and they charge the tenants a monthly fee for the use of the detached garages. You could also look at carports. So if you just have surface parking, being able to add carports or shelter, if you're in an area like Las Vegas or other warm climate areas that have really brutal weather in the summer, it could certainly be of value to your residents. But also, if you're in an area where there's inclement weather, being able to just add a carport could provide a little bit of relief to some of the inclement weather than just having surface parking. You could also paint the property or make what I call a facelift to the property, and paint's just one option. You could add technological advances like Wi-Fi and other relationships like that, as well as cables, another one that's pretty popular, satellite, but also security. There are a number of properties in Las Vegas, apartment communities that did not have a barrier of entry or have gates that are now gated. As a result, they can charge an additional premium for rents now because it is a deterrent and typically does lower the crime opportunities or frequency. And lastly, it also just provides a little bit of peace of mind because there's a barrier of entry that would not exist otherwise. So that's 7 ways to force property appreciation on a multifamily property. And as you know, if you have a single family investments, 2 of these 7 you may be able to achieve, but not all 7 are options for you. So typically this is unique to multifamily investing. So let me give you just an example of how to calculate forced appreciation. So I define property appreciation as net operating income, which is your top line income minus your operating expenses. That's your general definition for net operating income, divided by the cap rate that you will find on the property or published, which is just a measure of risk for the property given its age, condition, location, and other factors. So here's an assumption I use. So say you had an interest in a 10-unit property, multifamily property, and it was valued currently at $500,000. And each unit there rented out for $800 per unit per month. The expenses on that property were $200 a month. That's not including your taxes or mortgage. And it had a cap rate of 14.4%. And typically, just a side note, the higher the cap rate, the riskier the opportunity or the expected return should be. So you can look at it either way, but there's a much broader definition if you like to look it up for yourself. But that's just one I thought I'd quickly share. But by just simply increasing the rents by $25 per month per unit, here's what your new market value would be as a result of forced appreciation. So first we calculate our net operating income before the expense. Again, 10 units, $800 a unit in income, $200 a month in expenses. Multiply that times 12, we have $72,000 in net operating income. If we increase the rents $25 per unit, or 10 units at $25 is an increase of $250 a month. We take that same net operating income after the increase, again, it's 10 units, but now our net operating income would go from $825 in rents minus the expenses we held steady at $200. Multiply that times 12, that's now $75,000. Now, if we look at the property appreciation after the increase of $75,000 and we divide that by a cap rate, again at 14.4%, we're looking at a new value of $520,833 from a very modest rent increase for those 10 units at $25 per month per unit. Again, that represents a almost $21,000 increase after just 1 year by just simply increasing the rents by $25 a month. So as you see, that's a very powerful function of owning multifamily communities that would not allow itself to single family investing. It's not a direct carryover. So here's reason number 2. You can scale faster. So say, example, you had a goal of growing your portfolio by 10 units. And here I define single family as 1 unit, right? Simple math. You'd have to find 10 separate homes, right? If you're an investor, you know that's a very crowded space, for single family investing, whether it's for rentals or fix and flip. There's a lot of competition out there, and there's a lot of levels of experience in doing so. And so as a result, you now have to find a deal or make possibly 10 separate deals with 10 separate homeowners at the time in order to grow your portfolio by just 10 units. Multifamily, you can find one property for sale or talk directly with the owner of a 10-unit property and give them an offer that makes sense. And now you close that transaction successfully. You've grown your portfolio by 10 units with just one property. Or you can find some combination thereof. But for sake of this example, we find one 10-unit property, we negotiate the sale, we purchase it, we've grown our portfolio by 10 units. Just one simple conversation, one closing, we own 10 more units. Hopefully you're finding those first 2 reasons very compelling and reasons for you to consider multifamily investing if you haven't already, or if you're already on the path, to continue on your journey. Now, here's reason number 3, your financing process and options. Now, that's also a big difference between multifamily and single family. It's just the options that are available to you. Now, you know, as a single family investor that you, one, have to qualify personally for each and every one of the mortgages associated with it. And if for whatever reason you cannot continue the payments, they will pursue you personally or have the opportunity or option, I should say, is probably a better word at this point, of pursuing you personally for any damages that they incur as a result of taking the property back versus what was owed and outstanding. You also know your credit becomes an issue. And typically, if you're doing traditional financing, once you exceed 10 finance properties, you have an inability to continue to finance them traditionally. So you may have to find some secondary lenders, private funds, but certainly wouldn't be as seamless and streamlined as it had been for the first 10. So that's a major disadvantage or limitation to single family investing. Now, multifamily investing, as we use the term NOI or refer to net operating income, the property income itself qualifies. Now, for this definition, I again use 5+ units because, as I remind you, for purposes of lending, 1 to 4 units is considered a single family residence for lending purposes. So I just extended that same definition to this particular reason why multifamily investing makes way more sense than single family investing at this time. So if you own 5 or more units, the property income qualifies, and there are options out there for non-recourse. So if you remember recourse, you can come after me for it if I could not make the payments on time, subsequently lost the property, and there was any deficiency as related to you taking the property back. You could pursue me personally for the difference. there are options within multifamily where that's not an option. So you can walk away from the property. It typically doesn't damage has the potential to not damage your credit personally. And as a result, you find another great opportunity. There's probably another lender out there that will offer you financing because, again, it's the income that qualifies and not necessarily you. So that's a great reason number 3 for pursuing multifamily or continuing to pursue multifamily versus single family. And if you own investments for, during the last downturn, we know the carnage that was left after those who own multiple single family real estate. The value wasn't there anymore. They couldn't pay the mortgage payments. The short sales that were a result of that time frame, the potential deficiency judgments that were there. So there's that phantom income tax you have to pay on income you didn't receive, and you lost the property, may have to pay taxes on it. So there's a lot of reasons why you don't want to why you want to give single family investing a second thought before you just continue on with that or just make that your primary and sole source of investing. Again, there's options where non-recourse financing exists. So they would simply take the property back, you move on with your life, you find another opportunity and you give it another shot, right? Moving on to reason number 4, economies of scale. Now, we talked about scaling, which is just adding to your portfolio and doing sort of much more rapid pace than just individually purchasing or considering single family investments. So as a result, that talked about just scale. So now I'm talking about economies of scale, and that relates to cost savings. And I have a few examples of what economies of scale would look like with single family versus multifamily. Again, 1 to 4 is the definition I'm using, and 5+ for multifamily. Here's some of those examples that I referenced just a minute ago, or less, maybe even less than a minute. And this is the most common roofs, right? So if I own multiple single family residences, there's an opportunity that one or more roofs may need to be replaced, repaired at any point in time. Could be at the same time, separate time. I could have just repaired one and now here's another one, but I don't have to account for that circumstance if I own a multifamily. So we use that same example of 10 units, 10 homes. There's potentially 10 roofs I'm going to have to replace at some point in time or at the same time with the single family residence. That if it's a multifamily, it's a 10-unit building, there's only one roof, right? So that economies of scale that's an example of economies of scale. Common area renovation. Now, I liken this to landscaping, right? So if I have 10 different properties, there's 10 different landscaping concerns that there may be. If you're out in Vegas, it could be desert scape, which means you have no grass. It's pretty much just rock, and there's no grass. So we'll just say it's all rocks. And if you have other properties where there's patches or the front or backyard have real grass, there may be reasons for you to continue to have landscaping concerns, and they may all look different. So I just don't have the benefit of economies of scale, right? Unless I want to make every one of my properties look exactly like the other. And even then, you simply won't have economies of scale. You just have what's called uniformity. But when you have one 10-unit multifamily, you have one front yard, one side yard, one backyard, or maybe 2 side yards. But anyway, you're talking about one particular property. And there's typically, a common area that you'd have. But the common area example that I'm kind of transferring for a single family to multifamily is, say, your landscaping, right? So then there's also mechanical upgrades. There's HVAC units, potentially 10. Give an example we talked about earlier. Here's one. There's furnace, right? Potentially 10 furnaces, only one if it's that 10-unit multifamily. And there's several other mechanical upgrades that you would limit yourself to just one if it was if it was multifamily. However, when you consider a single family, the number of single family residences that you own, the potential is there for you to have to repair that number as well. And then property management fees. So we look at it as a percentage basis. It's typically cost you more to have your single family residence managed professionally versus a multifamily property or community, you can negotiate typically a lower percentage fee. Here's the other, to me, exciting reason why multifamily makes more sense than single family. I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. There's a higher barrier of entry for multifamily investing because the first thing you have to do is you have to understand how to identify the opportunities, and secondly, and most importantly, how to analyze a multifamily opportunity. And it is more of an art than a science. We all know with single family, because it's the value is pretty much based upon comparable properties, it's pretty easy with all the resources online, or who doesn't know a real estate agent that can help them with the after repair value or the current value of a property. If you're just building a portfolio of rental properties, you can pretty much ask an agent, or you can look at Zillow or some of the other websites that offer you some level of valuation. In multifamily, I feel pretty comfortable saying it's because it's more of an art than a science. There's a higher barrier of entry. Like based upon your expertise, your exit strategy, your acquisition strategy, your analyzation of the property can look entirely different from person to person. So although we may use the same template, we all know what items we're looking at analyzing, but what rate of return we're looking for, how long we're looking to hold the property, what opportunities we see coming in to bring or force appreciation to the property could be another barrier of entry or another idea, thought to consider when you're just doing your analyzing of the property. And so as a result of that, it just has a higher barrier of entry. It just does. And it's because you have to analyze the property, and typically that's a very personal analysis that you provide. So the value of what you're willing to pay for that property will differ because of some of the reasons that I mentioned before. There are terms that aren't as familiar. There aren't shows on TV dedicated to how to buy and sell residential real estate. They don't have that, or I haven't seen any offered on multifamily. Because again, it is more of an art than a science versus the purchase of single family homes can tend to be pretty much a science, right? So that's another reason why multifamily investing to me makes more sense than single family, because you will not have the competition that you will on single family. Another reason why, because of the lower barrier of entry that I just thought about, is you'll have wholesalers, you have end buyers of property. And so they just practice the process of I tie up the property. If I get it under contract, they know most other investors who may have had an interest will just move on and say, next, let me go find another property. They're not going to follow that property to its life cycles. They're not going to know if the property came back on the market. Typically, there may be in some cases, but there's probably going to be well, let me just find the next opportunity versus let me follow this and see if this actually closes. And I know from personal experiences that oftentimes the single family properties that have been negotiated at first and just given the price that the seller said they wanted, they used tactics like the inspection and the level of repairs that come back as a result to renegotiate, or in the multifamily world, retrade the property. And so as a result, for a seller, we may have been receiving multiple phone calls from investors willing to buy. They hear you signed a contract, they move on. This person that you've entered into a contract with comes back now and wants to substantially reduce the sales price. You would love to have someone else come back in and not do business with them, but most may have moved on to another opportunity, or you just may not have kept their information to follow up, because as we know that most sellers think that whoever they sign a contract with, that transaction is going to close successfully. So those are just reasons why, because of the lower barrier of entry, single family real estate or investing can be very frustrating. And with multifamily, because it's more of an art than a science, because it takes a higher level of analyzing properties from the beginning and finding your acquisition price, there is a higher barrier of entry. And you're typically dealing with more professional investors whose practice is to operate with integrity and fidelity. And so as a result, higher barrier of entry, higher integrity levels, and you're going to be dealing with typically more sophisticated investors. Here's reason number 6, and this is a pretty exciting one. I like the reason number 7 a lot as well. It's probably one of my favorites, the first and the 7th one. But number 6, let me stay present, multiple ownership structures. Now, how you acquire property in single family versus multifamily can be different. So you can purchase both the single family and multifamily property by yourself. Here have it defined as sole ownership. You can purchase the property joint. So, I can buy it with another person. We own it together, maybe 50-50, but some function of 100%. And I can do that as well in multifamily. But there's a passive, or I could do a partnership with multiple people, right? I could carry that same thought to multifamily. However, where multifamily offers another ownership acquisition opportunity is with a syndication. And the syndication is where you'll have a general partner who will run and manage the property, the asset, we refer to it in multifamily world. And you can own as a limited partner. So you have an ownership interest, you act as an owner, but it's a passive investment for you. So you're not asked to do any repairs or manage the property or have any ongoing decision making day to day with the property, but you are an owner. And that is another opportunity for ownership with multifamily that I won't say doesn't exist, but typically doesn't exist when you're talking about a single family residence. So that's an exciting opportunity, option, and there's just, to me, more ownership structures with multifamily. And don't have to necessarily act as merely an active investor. I have a passive investor option that gives me ownership to the property as well. So that's a pretty exciting reason for multifamily versus single family. So I wanted to share that. And I'll move on to our number 7 reason why multifamily investing to me is better than single family. I'll hover here for a little bit. This term house hacking is pretty well known in the single family residence world. It's typically defined as I'm a renter. I buy my first home, which is typically a starter home, maybe a 2-bedroom, could be a condo, could be a townhouse, or a small single family residence. And as I decide to grow my family, or maybe I'm starting to advance professionally, there may be an opportunity for me to purchase a nicer home, either in a better area, different area, closer to work, offers more features to the home. And I can, instead of selling that first home, I keep it, turn that into a rental property, and now I have some rental income, hopefully. And typically, if you're buying the property correctly and the rent support it, it's at least making the mortgage payment for you. Often, as we know, that was one of the causes of the downturn in '08, that the rents did not keep pace with the mortgage amounts. And so, you're operating with negative cash flow. And so I now, instead of receiving a profit or cash flow, a positive cash flow from my property, I was now subsidizing the mortgage payment with the rents that I was receiving. And so, when the values went down, of course, a lot of people couldn't justify paying for a house they didn't live in. So therefore it contributed to the number of foreclosures that we saw in short sales. But house hacking is a viable option for single family. But if we're looking at it from a rental income perspective, it's not possible with single family because you must be a non-owner occupant, right? I can't live in the property and receive monthly income. Now, some would debate, I can rent out a room, rent out a couple of rooms, but let's just, for purposes of this conversation, say it needs to be an entire home that someone occupies and not fractional rental, as those examples would apply to. But in multifamily, you absolutely can live in one of those units, right? So if you're in multifamily, a multifamily is anything more than one door, right? So I'm in a duplex, I live in one half, I rent out the other. that income for the second unit, we'll call it, may either completely pay my mortgage, but certainly will subsidize or reduce the amount that I, as the occupant of that unit, would have to pay going forward. So it could be a nothing positive cash flow, or it could just subsidize what that mortgage payment would be. It all depends upon area, how much you owe. There's a lot of variables there. But the one thing that we can say is that you would not have to pay the entirety of the mortgage by yourself, right? And if you own more units, that's just more people contributing to the mortgage payment, also putting you in a better position to have positive cash flow as a result. So typically when you get to 3, 4, 5 or more doors, you're probably going to walk away with a check at the end of the day and essentially living for free versus single family residence. It's not even possible because I need to completely vacate that property in order to receive the maximum rental income for it. So house hacking as it relates to multifamily is not only a way for you to start your home ownership, it's also a way for you to start your rental portfolio business by owning a multifamily unit first instead of just looking for single family residences. And if there is an opportunity to do so, I would say do it. If you're going to occupy one, just a side note, I know that through FHA financing, you could purchase that property with as little as 3.5% down, right? And with mortgage rates the way that they are, not that they will continue to be this way, but given that, the fact you've got 30-year financing on it, so you got some certainty in terms of what your payments are, you could very well not only accomplish your home ownership dreams, but also start your real estate investing opportunities as a result of looking at multifamily first instead of just looking at single family. So again, this is one of the great reasons why I like multifamily investing and makes it absolutely unique to single family investing is this house hacking, but approached differently. Not for me just acquiring my property, I move out, buy a new property and keep it instead of selling it. I can accomplish essentially the same, but while I'm living there on the multifamily side, and that opportunity just does not exist in single family investing. So these are the 7 reasons why I'm super excited to share this presentation with you and information with you more than anything, because these are 7, to me, compelling reasons why multifamily investing is better than single family. So here we're going to just kind of summarize everything. I've done a brief summary, but I just want to show you, because now you can see on one slide the 7 reasons why multifamily investing is better than single family investing. And just as a recap, there was forced appreciation. So I showed you 7 ways that you can force appreciation on a multifamily investment, and probably 2 of those 7 exist with single family investing. You can scale faster. Again, that's just defined by owning more units faster, right? I don't have to buy 10 different single family homes. I can buy one 10-unit multifamily property, and I've accomplished the same goal. The financing process and the options that are available to you are greater and a lot more flexibility. But most importantly is that non-recourse financing option for multifamily, which again is 5 or more doors that exist in multifamily that just doesn't exist. I've not seen any non-recourse single family residence investing. I haven't. So I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. I'm just going to say I've searched high and low and I haven't been able to find it. All the financing I found is going to hold me personally liable, and there is always the option for them, if for whatever reason I did not successfully pay as agreed, and the bank unfortunately took that property back. And when they sold it, there was any deficiency, they had the option or the opportunity or alternative to come back to me personally to satisfy that deficiency. And that doesn't exist, or those options are available to you where that's not an option for them to come back to you and pursue you personally for any deficiency on multifamily. So if that's a concern, or if you lived through 08, 09, and that was unfortunately a situation that happened to you, then this is a great and more really compelling reason. You know how bad it can be, but that's a compelling reason why multifamily investing, for me, makes more sense than single family. Then there's just the economies of scale, right? We talked about, I gave you, I think, 4 examples of economies of scale that you benefit from with multifamily: one roof, mechanical upgrades, the common area renovations, mechanical issues that could come up and arise. And there was also a fourth example that I mentioned there as well, that would not exist, that just gives you the benefit if you own a single family residence. You however many you own, the potential for any of those 4 items, and there's a laundry list of others that could occur, can and will either at separate times or at the same time be an issue. So I gave the example, if you're a member of 10 roofs versus 1 roof. And at some point, probably if you own them long enough, you're going to need to repair or replace all 10 roofs. It could happen once sequentially. It could happen one happens, and then you have all 10 of them go at the same time. But at some point in time, that you're probably going to have multiple repairs as it relates to a single family residence versus owning one 10-unit multifamily community or property, and you've got 1 roof. The higher barrier of entry. I gave you a lot of conversation related to the higher barrier of entry with multifamily, because again, it is more of an art than a science, because there's so many ways you can acquire. Your return on investment or your exit strategy could look a little different. How you analyze the expenses or income. There's a lot of considerations there that make multifamily investing more of an art than a science. So as a result, what may not be a deal for someone else could very well be a deal and opportunity for you. And as we know, there's a much lower barrier of entry in single family investing, whether it's for fix and flip, whether it's for rentals. It's the value is known for the most part. I can call a realtor or call a real estate professional. I can look at several sites that are out there now to give me some idea. I can just find out what the last home that looks just like it sold for, and therefore that's probably going to be my value. And as a result, I don't need to be highly sophisticated. There's not a lot of maneuverability in terms of determining value. And so just as a matter of just so much information and there being pretty much one path of success, there's a much lower barrier of entry with single family real estate investing versus multifamily. And so as a result, higher barrier of entry, lower competition, probably more sophisticated seller. I gave an example of a lot of wholesalers or just buyers of investment properties that will give an owner the value that they ask for, only to come back and want to renegotiate at some later point so they can make the numbers work for them. But they just want to literally tie up the property so that they have control of it. You move on to your next opportunity. You don't follow the life cycle of that particular investment. And as a result, it may come back, but the seller also loses their options, because where they had multiple investors calling them before it went under contract, most aren't going to follow it to the close moving forward. They want to find an opportunity. So that's another reason why multifamily investing to me makes more sense and just better overall. We talked about the multiple ownership structures. There's some commonality between single family ownership structures and multifamily. Owning it individually, owning it with another partner, or owning it with multiple partners is pretty much consistent single family or multifamily. But there's a passive component. So if you're looking at syndication opportunities, which is an alternative way of purchasing a multifamily property, I don't have active ownership or management of the property every day. I'm not asked to make decisions on how it's managed or run. However, I'm an owner. I will receive cash flow as a result of the operations of that multifamily community, but I can move on and carry on with the rest of my day, and I don't have the responsibility of managing that particular asset. So that's an option that's pretty much, to me, unique to multifamily if you compare it to single family investing. And then one of the most exciting options was house hacking. That was reason number 7. And that was where, for the most part, you identify house hacking with, here's a way for you to buy your first property. You buy a small home, townhome, condo, and you own it. Your circumstances change. You move up. instead of selling that property and realizing the equity, I keep it. I find a tenant. I now have started to build a rental portfolio, and I'm on my way, right? And I could do that again with my second, third, fourth house. And there's many investors who have a portfolio of former homes they've owned that they have now transitioned to rental properties. So that's probably the most common usage or definition of house hacking. But if you think about single family, just as a reminder, for you to receive rental income other than owning a room, so I just want to throw out that caveat or disclaimer, you have to vacate the property. It has to be non-owner occupied. And multifamily, that's not the case. I can purchase a duplex. I can have a tenant on one side, I live on the other. They may not make my entire mortgage payment based upon the rents and the mortgage payment that is obligated on that particular home, but I'm certainly not going to be paying the entire mortgage amount by myself. I will have help and support. And so as I own more doors, as I own more units, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and I still stay in that property, I'm probably working myself to a way that at least my mortgage payment is met, but I'm probably going to walk away with positive cash flow as a result of having multiple tenants, although I'm living in one of those units. So that's a fantastic way of not only purchasing your first residence, but also building a rental portfolio. Is certainly a option that I'm going to impress upon my 2 kids as they become homeowners, that this is a fantastic route to home ownership. You stay in one, have a tenant in the other. Now you're not making that entire mortgage payment. So now you can hopefully save some of your earned income and save and start a savings and look at maybe purchasing another property down the line. Or if you have multiple tenants, maybe they're paying, you're living for free. So not only do I own the property, but I'm living for free and somebody else is making my mortgage payment for me and creating equity in my property, not only through the appreciation, but also because they're paying down the principal on my mortgage. So that's an exciting reason why, and one of the more exciting reasons why multifamily is better than single family. Again, I hope you enjoyed this part. I just want to tell you how I could be of help to you outside of providing you every month information related to multifamily investing that I know is going to be actionable and it's going to compel you to consider multifamily exclusively, supplement it with your single family investing, or if nothing else, just really spark an interest in learning more about it. And so if you want to look at ways that I could be of help to you, there is a website that I operate called West Coast offmarketpropertyfinder.com. To me, it's the shameless but leading resource for a concierge level of off-market commercial income producing properties. As both a real estate professional and financier, we have relationships with numerous commercial owners, property owners, such as REITs and insurance companies and hedge funds. And through those relationships, we have access to off-market properties. And off-market doesn't mean it's just not listed. They may not really be for sale. But because this is a concierge level of service, and because of the relationships that I have, we can leverage those two, and that's how we do what we do. So we just ask that if you go on their website, you can build out a profile, for free. And based upon that profile, I can certainly make calls that are private and discreet for what you're looking for and see if I can put you two together. So that's a service that's offered as a result of West Coast offmarketpropertyfinder.com. So if you're looking for a property location service, don't think there's a better resource that you can use for that than West Coast offmarketpropertyfinder.com. Once you found that property and you would like some help with how to make this a deal or know if you have a great deal, we do offer some pre-underwriting services. Those pre-underwriting services I liken to hiring out someone to build out a resume for you, right? Doesn't guarantee you're going to get the job, but it does put you on equal footing, and and you have what you need to be successful. And that's what our pre-underwriting services offer. So like I said, I liken it, or it's akin to a resume providing service, right? Didn't guarantee the job, so I'm not going to guarantee you're going to get the deal, but I can guarantee you that you will know what deal you have. And that's very important for those who are looking for their first multifamily portfolio, or looking at opportunities and just want a professional, someone who has experience with underwriting and analyzing opportunities to do so. And if you needed help with loan placement and analysis services, we can certainly do that. And that typically comes with just referrals and relationships we have for property types that you're looking for. Here, this is exclusively for multifamily. I can, and based upon the property type, its location, dollar amount, pretty much tell you where that opportunity would be placed, or a good placement option for it. And I can certainly help you with the entirety of that placement. And certainly once you've engaged them, with following it through until the close. And that's where the analysis services comes in, which is analyzing the financing that they're going to offer you, look at term sheets, analyze the term sheets, help you with the due diligence from the start to finish. So just want to let you know that is available to you. And I told you I would offer you resources as to the how we can help you. And so I told you about what this was. Here's the how we can help you. So I wanted to share that with you. And most importantly, listen, if you need help, don't hesitate to seek professional help. I know I'm a professional by license. I know I'm professional in how I communicate, and I'm a professional in the resources that I have to offer. So I encourage you to seek me out. Reach out to me, and you'll see after this, there will be my contact information will be here. I'm certainly going to share this presentation with you. So if you'd like to hear it again, if you like my contact information, it is on the next slide. So there's an email address, direct phone number, YouTube channel. So you can also find this information on our YouTube channel. Unfortunately, I'm not at the level where I have a unique YouTube channel name, but you can certainly find me there. And Facebook, as well as Instagram. So I typically cover multiple platforms. And so you can find me or information that I have to share or resources on those different outlets and venues and platforms that are listed there. Lastly, just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for investing about an hour of time with me. And you'll see I'm looking at the time here. I'm under an hour. So I just want to thank you for giving me your time, your attention, for staying to the end. And if you want to send a message, that again is my email address. If you have any questions or want to have a conversation, schedule some time to talk and tell me about your personal situation. But you'll see on the meetup group, I will have another calendar invite for next month, so in March. I'm not quite sure. Going to see what kind of feedback I receive from today's conversation and see if that will drive me to what the next topic will be, or if there's just I have some organic ideas in my head of where I would like to go. But if there's another area that the community that we're looking to build, I'm looking to build, would like to know more of, I'm selfless as it relates to that. I want to make sure I'm providing value to the masses. So appreciate your time again. Thank you for attending. Look forward to growing this community. Certainly look forward to you joining me again next month. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you humbly for your time. Bye-bye.